Okay, well, it's the 21st, and last night we had a whole bunch of Q postings. Probably the first thing I should do is clarify, because at the end of the last one, I made reference to an Obama speech that was allegedly before the Bilderbergers, and that was not correct. And someone had taken about 20 seconds of his speech and flipped the meaning of it, reversed it, put pieces in order, and basically said the opposite of what he said in a speech, I think it was in Belgium. That was a 35-minute speech, and I listened to the speech later on. I did not find that speech before I shared it with you, and I saw several small snippets and not the full one. So that doesn't excuse it, but I'm glad that some of you corrected me. What I would go on to say, however, is that what's the deeper meaning? Is the deeper meaning the opposite of what was the big speech and what the big speech was about? Was he signaling to his masters, and I'll say this again, was he signaling to his masters that what he wanted was what he really wanted? So Agenda 21 fits with what the 20-second fake speech was about. Agenda 2030, which is a UN agenda, is exactly on point. I have a process, and I'm going to call it something that no one else has called it. They are attempting to shuffle, that is, the masters of the world are attempting to shuffle us all into high-density, small areas in inner cities where we can all be made to work. And that process, as it is about, ends up with what was my first exposure to George Soros. And George Soros has for 20 years promoted, secretly and surreptitiously and generously supported the so-called liberal agenda, including the process of smart growth. And I have come to appreciate whenever anybody calls something smart, it's newspeak. What it really means is that it's smart for me to get you to believe it, but it will not be smart for you to do what I tell you smart people are going to do. And the smart growth that we saw even in Montana, even 15 or 20 years ago when I was working on development, was that Helena, the capital of Montana, was being sucked into so-called smart growth. And smart growth there was to condense everybody, to put them all 6 feet away, to make multi-purpose use places, to make people able to walk, for commuter traffic, for mass transit. And even in Montana, where there are only 1 or 2 of us per acre, per square mile, I mean, where we are the least dense of any place except, I think, Wyoming and Alaska, they were still trying to box us all into little spaces. And what I call this, and I don't see anybody else that has said this, not that it's magical, I call it Soroscape. And Soroscape is boxes of tiny little homes, so-called homes, basically bed sits. In Japan, they have what they call, I think they don't call them, obviously, in English, bed sits, but basically you can rent a space where you climb up into a little chamber. There's just room to stand up, there's a bed and a place to change your clothes, and that's all the room that there is. And there is a master plan, which is that there will be places half again bigger than a mattress, and people are going to be in them. And I hate to make that sound so dark, but that's the case. And the agenda that is the Georgia Guidestones is that we get to 500 to 800 million people worldwide, and that's supposed to be good for all of us, right? Well, all of us that survive. But even more than that, what it leaves is it leaves 99% of the property of the world open for the few thousand to enjoy it as though it existed thousands of years ago. So they used a term in Montana, which was east of the mountains that went all the way to the North Dakota border, and there was this conceptual idea that it would be called the Big Open. And effectively what it was prairie from the mountains all the way to North Dakota and into North Dakota, from the Canadian border and perhaps above it, if we forget about who Canada is and why they might be separate, clear into Wyoming. So it's an area bigger than California, maybe not as big as Texas, but huge and basically unpopulated. And what has happened over the last 50 or 60 years is that's largely occurred, with the exception of a half dozen cities, Billings and a few other places, that's largely occurred and occurring on an ongoing basis. So if you take the 500 or 800 million from the 7 billion, you end up with about 10%, less than 10%, or about 10% of what is on the world today. And we go from 320 million to 30 or 20 or 30 or 50 million people in the entire United States. And they're pushed back away from the coasts. They are consolidated into small alcoves. They are put into work zones where they can be used and AI'd and chipped. And that's the space that we're looking for. And it only takes the Black Plague or something like that to create that scenario. And if you don't think that there's biological weapons that will do that already, you're crazy. So part of my hopefulness about the whole Q business, to get back to it, and about Trump as the protagonist, the first protagonist that was not strung, hung, puppetized by his own bad deeds since Kennedy, is that whatever he brings, he is the best hope that we have. And our alternative, which takes me to the next piece, our alternative is, of course, revolution. And one of the things that's in this recent Q posting, and I'm going to go ahead and say this, that one of the latest postings, and this came in after his wonderful speech, which I watched in Duluth, Minnesota. I didn't watch it there, but when he was in Duluth, Minnesota. And basically, the Q points out in 1585 that organized riots are being planned. And we've got Peter Fonda, who says what we, the people, need to do is take Baron Trump and stick him in a cage with a bunch of pedophiles. Now, Peter Fonda walked back from that and basically said, I think he had overspoken. But he also said that I am going to take us to the edge of sedition, which is that we need to riot against Trump and take our country back. That's his version of it. And then he says, well, I cannot lead it because that would be sedition, and then they would arrest me, right? Well, yeah, of course we would. And wouldn't it be fun to do so? Peter Fonda is probably the second, well, he's the second or third worst actor I've ever seen. Chris Christopherson, you know, he's the anchor man. And you've got De Niro and some of these others that can play themselves. Peter's own dad, Henry, was a crappy actor, and the only time he ever was good was on Golden Pond when he played a grumpy, forgetful old man, and then he was smart enough and in character enough to play a grumpy, stupid old man, and he was perfect for the part. Peter Fonda was a crappy actor at the best, and I'm not sure, you know, when Easy Rider came out, which was what, 30, 40 years ago, kind of hated to see Dennis Hopper get shot off the Harley, but I didn't feel quite so provocatively negative about Peter getting shot off. It was kind of a good deal, and I was almost cheering for the guys in the truck. Peter Fonda probably has some inside information on pedophiles. That's why he thinks it's such a good idea for Barron Trump to be forced into a place with him. Isn't that a nice image? So, and of course, Jane Fonda is Hanoi Jane, and was working not with McCain, but at the same time McCain was trying to undo the Vietnam process. So they're all still stirred into the pot, okay? So Q talks about organized riots being planned and countermeasures are in place. So let me go one step short of sedition, because I can't do that, right? I don't want to be in the cage with Peter Fonda. Well, yeah, I do want to be in the cage with Peter Fonda, but just the two of us. No pedophiles, except maybe him. Just the two of us. That would be good. I would enjoy that, and I'd get in shape for that one. So he said there are countermeasures in place, Q does, and that resistance will be far smaller than the MSM, the mainstream media, has planned. The attacks will intensify, and we've seen that over recent weeks. That's one of the confirming processes. And of course, many of the attacks, the false flags, the rest of that Q tells us have been happening. We can't see, because if they stop them, they don't happen, right? It's definitional. So it is hard for us to see everything that's going on. It's hard for us to see most of what's going on. But let me go back to the comment that I made, which has to do with sedition, which is, if people take to the streets in protest of Trump, the Trump card, not Trump, but the Trump card of us patriots, of the people who want to preserve the constitutionality of this country, to preserve our borders, to preserve our national entity and identity, who want to stop the Soroscape and the Agenda 21, the Agenda 2030, is for us to countervail in larger numbers. And I will bet you, this is a good bet, I'm solid on this one, I will bet you that the people who have firearms far outnumber on the pro-Trump, pro-freedom, pro-constitution side, the liberals that want to undo what's going on now in the name of Trump. And so, short of sedition, what I'm saying is, be prepared to step up into a bigger space. And if in fact people go to the streets, then some of us better go to the streets, all of us better go to the streets and neutralize the process. Because frankly, I'm not sure that the government having a neutralizing force for that process is as good as people, as us, citizens, taking this back. So it hasn't been said about it. There are comments, and to the best of my knowledge, they still have not come about. This whole Rosenstein and the release of documents and the rest of that, we finally had somebody, Matt Gaetz, representative, who said what they should have been saying. What Jordan and Meadows didn't have the cojones to say was, look, you show up at noon on Wednesday and we'll play the good, the bad, the ugly. Da 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 da. And you show up and you show up with the documents, or we start impeaching you, right? That's the way it ought to be. And if there's anybody with cojones in Congress, that's where it ought to go. Now, allegedly, Paul Ryan said, yeah, there is some movement toward impeachment. Well, is that really true, or is that not? I don't know. But that's where you have to go. There are constitutional rights and protections in Congress as a balancing power, as one of the triangle of constitutional authority. And if that is not exercised, it is gone. It is neutered. And so I applaud Matt Gaetz for having said it, and go from there. Now, many of you have seen the picture. I'm moving on. Have seen the picture of the Q guy, the VIP, the chain on, the little card with a great big Q and the American flag built into it, cheering Trump as he walked by on his way into the speech in Duluth. And he noted, and specially noted and pointed at this guy, and it can't be anybody else. And what he pointed at was his chest, which was pretty cool. So it's another positive, and it is a good positive. Now, somebody said to me in the comments, oh, you of little faith, you need to have faith, right? Which is a perfectly good Christian concept. And I understand and embrace it as a concept, but not for me, okay? I am in the show me state kind of identity. I'm not from Missouri. Yes, I drove through there. Show me, right? And it is, I give energy to it. I give promotion to it. I give my presence to it. I express the desire for it to go forward, and I am hopeful. And those things have power. I don't say they don't. But faith is not a place for me in politics. And part of it is I have a skeptical, jaded, jaundiced perspective about it, and rightly so. You know, we have gone from 1963 without a bright spot. Tell me where the bright spot was. Richard Nixon was in on Kennedy's murder. Lyndon Johnson was in on Kennedy's murder. Gerald Ford was on the Warren Commission, was part of the magic bullet solution, which was a total BS maneuver. He and Arlen Specter were working on that. You got Carter that was sound asleep and was managed by Zbigniew Brzezinski, one of the darkest guys in our government, followed by Ronald Reagan, who got shot in months into it and had behind him perhaps the darkest, most devious president we've ever had in George H.W. Bush. He was there for 8 years. His buddy Clinton, or 4 years, 8 years as Reagan's VP, running it from the shadows, doing the Contra stuff and all the rest of that. Then you got 4 years of Bush himself. Then you got 8 years of his buddy Clinton, the two of them working on the process together. And then you've got dummy down, dumb George W., who wasn't smart enough to know he was a puppet. and then the ultimate MK Ultra candidate, fake President Obama. Where have we been for 50 years? Well, not any place good. There is a, shifting again, there's a picture of Sheila Jackson Lee, and guess what she has on? She has a ring, and she's supposed to be somebody who says that Rosenstein's going to get fired in the next few days, or Friday, which may be tomorrow, right? And what is she wearing? She's wearing the triangular, swirly pedophile ring, diamond-studded pedophile ring. Is she one of them? Well, why would you wear the ring? And why would you wear the ring if the FBI identified that very symbol as pedophilic, and wear it after that? Wear it after that. You know, it's bad enough to wear it, but when you're dumb enough to wear it after it has been identified, you're double dumb and double dark. That's what the deal is, Sheila. You're double dumb and double dark. So, Q talks about wanting the dark side, wanting us divided, wanting us to lie. They're going to lie and cheat and steal. They are sick. What else can we say here? The whole idea of the Trump rally was really good. You've got Supposedly, Obama's staff is talking. They are squealing like stuck hogs and telling the truth in behind. And all of those secret emails that circulated in the background that showed seditious, treasonous activity are coming to the fore. I will tell you honestly, I don't know what 3 kill box, 2 kill box, 1 kill box means. I'm sure somebody has told you. I guess it means great big stuff. Let's see, what else do we have? The other big thing that I want to talk about is that what Q talks about is that this stuff is starting to come to the surface, that we're going to see more and more proofs of it. I welcome that. Again, I'm hopeful. I give energy to it. I'm positive. I'm proactive. But I'm still a skeptic and a hopeful, helpful, heartful skeptic. But it's not a matter of faith, folks. It's not a matter of faith. It's a matter of whether it is or it isn't. Now, the other thing, the final thing is that Q said there's going to be a Q&A, a question and answer period on Saturday. That's kind of a big deal. Time to be announced. My guess is that there will be no announcement because they're not going to pre-announce that and then have something occur on 8chan as a result. So that probably will come unannounced. But Q&A, if in fact Q responds to Q&A, which is kind of cool, right? So maybe Q will come with A, and they'll both answer stuff, and we're going to get some intelligent responses to a lot of the things that people are asking across a broad range. Why are we being chemtrailed? What kinds of stuff is going on? When is this stuff going to surface? What are we going to do with the indictments? Where does Huber fit into this? What kind, they're allegedly, Huber filed indictments in November or December, and that those indictments may include Podesta and Hillary and others. If that's in fact the case, that's fabulous stuff. So that's the news across the nation. There you are. So I look forward. We'll probably be talking Saturday or Sunday. I'm going to follow on this. And again, it's because I'm hopeful about this, and it is, whatever it is, it's our best opportunity because it's the one that keeps us from having shotguns in the street. And it's maybe the only stopgap to revolution, folks. And that stopgap is something that we truly have to give energy to. And if we can avoid having revolution, forcible, physical, in the streets revolution, that's great. Now, as one final note, and I'm just being playful, okay? This is, I was thinking about setting up a lottery where people could enter into the lottery, and at some point we would have this lottery draw, and we would draw probably for 20 or 50 or 100 different lotteries. But the lottery would be, all right, come on, it's a little dark, I appreciate it. The lottery would be for who gets to be the executioner of that individual person. So everybody that wanted to be the executioner for Hillary Rodham Clinton would sign up to the lottery. We'd give them a number, and then we would have a drawing. Now, I don't intend that we would necessarily have that person be the executioner, but they could wear a t-shirt and they say, I'm the winner, I'm officially Hillary's executioner when the time comes. And we would also be able to name the people that should be on the list. And I'm going to tell you ahead of time that for my little lottery, Trump and some of the people that we truly trust won't be on the pile, but there should be lots of them that are. And while it is merely an expression, a playful and dark expression, give it some thought. And if anybody likes the idea, I'll put it together. Or I'll get some of you to help me put it together. So that's the deal. Thank you again. Somebody said, don't thank me. Don't thank us. Well, you guys are the ones that give me the energy to do this. You're the ones with your feedback, with your wisdom, with your emails, with your comments, with your addition, with your YouTube stuff that opens up new vistas for me, okay? And not only do you do that, you say, you know, bravo, somebody said it in a way that I wanted to say it, and that makes it worthwhile for me to be here. So I do thank you. Thank you very much.